self-publishing. So the micro-publisher, maybe some of you are micro-publishers, the micro-publisher also has an opportunity to publish their own work or to publish a very niche set of things. So that's quite interesting. I think it's a very democratic space. And the way you compete in this space is different from the way you compete in any of the other spaces. So I've talked quite a lot about that. If you look at what the other bits are, I'm going to go from the bottom. We're holding about 28% of books going through book shops, book chains, of which our most important is Waterstones. Much our most important is Waterstones. Waterstones has undergone a very big change since I set up Nosy Crow in 2011. They brought in to run the company someone who was an independent bookseller. His name is James Daunt. He took away a lot of the emphasis on discounting. We exist in a market where there is no fixed price for books. And Waterstones had tried to compete with Amazon on price and failed because they can't compete with Amazon on price. Waterstones and the other chain bookshops have the costs of being on our street. So Waterstones said, we will try to make the reason to come to Waterstones to be about the experience of being in a beautiful bookshop. And you won't mind about the price so much. And they were right, and they have held and indeed slightly grown their market position over time. Waterstones has, and that's helped chain bookshops to maintain their position. Other chain bookshops have not been so successful as Waterstones. For us, as a small or medium bookseller, our relationship with Waterstones is our most important UK relationship. We would send them covers before we would print a cover. We would talk to them about titles, book titles, what we would call a book. We would have conversations with them before we decide what to do, because their decision matters to us so much. We can't do it for every book. Nosy Crow publishes 120 books next year. We published 100 this year. We don't do it for every book, but we will do it for big books. There's a book that I've got down there that we'll be talking about that I showed the cover to them 5 times before we got it right. 5 times. Until I got the cover they wanted. And I wouldn't have published that book without the cover they wanted. So Waterstones but the chain bookseller is very important. Independent bookshops, now only 7% of our market. We have under 1,000 independent bookshops in a country of 60 million people. Under 1,000. The ones that have survived are amazing. They are great bookshops. They are destination bookshops. They're brilliant. They often have cafes, they do events, they have authors there. They're really energetic. They really, really make themselves part of a community. The ones who were just old guys, grumpily selling books, they're dead. Probably literally, actually. But they're dead. They're not there anymore. They're gone. Gone to gone. We are only seeing the really, really strong, purposeful, vigorous independents survive. Bargain bookshops, so this is a space where publishers are selling overstocks, really, usually for about €1. There's a lot of pound selling. That's a big part of our market. And it's big in different places, because what we're not seeing here is something that is not as true for Italy, I think. We have a huge wealth gap between London and the southeast of England and pretty much everywhere else. So we don't have many bargain bookshops in London because it costs a lot to have a shop in London, and because we have a lot of rich people in London. But outside London, this is often the only place you can buy a book in a town. The independent bookshop will be dead. What will survive is the bargain bookshop. Scary but true. This is important because it diminishes the sense of value of books for everyone. So everyone thinks a book should cost £1, a book should cost €1, but only in those shops. But if that's the only thing you ever see, why would you ever pay €10 for a book? Supermarkets, big for us, really important. Tiny range, Very, very few titles go in there. But when they go in, wow, those sales are huge. The discounts are very deep. Working with supermarkets is a tricky thing. We sell them the books very cheaply. Even if they sell them at the cover price, we sell them to them very cheaply because there's huge competition to get in there, so they can ask for a big discount, but also because they have the infrastructure of getting them out and putting them on the shelves in hundreds and hundreds of stores. And other shop would include things like museum shops, gallery shops, toy shops for kids' books, a whole range of other things, which is a very fragmented piece of our market. So that other shop thing is quite hard for me to get hold of. How Nosy Crow deals with this is that when we started up, we put everything out to an agency. So we had a sales agency selling to all of these customers. Over time, what Nosy Crow has done as a small publisher is pull in the most important customers. And so now 80% of our business, 80, comes from 10 customers. And we run that ourselves. So with a small, dedicated in-house team, we service 10 customers and we make 80% of our money from those 10 from the UK. So that's how we do that. Don't do that again, yeah. Didn't work. I thought it would be quite interesting, just very quickly, for those of you who want a more broken down version of that previous slide, to look at how different it is across different categories. So you see the huge dominance, enormous dominance. 2/3 of adult fiction is sold online. 2/3. You're down to half of non-fiction being sold online. You've got much, much smaller percentage of children's books sold online. Why is that? I think parents want to browse. I think kids are not buying online. They may be spending a lot of time on screens, but they're not buying online. And a lot of parents want to share that book buying experience with the child. For the children's market, the physical bookshop, the bricks and mortar bookshop, is more important than in any other category. And you can see even things like the independent, the chain bookshops rather, are, this is all of this is higher. You can see very much the dominance of supermarkets in that context, because that's a place where families go. And so that's children's 0 to 12, and this is young adult, where it's about 1/3 going through into now. But it's really interesting to see the difference in shape. If you're publishing adult fiction, your customer, your main retail customer, is Amazon. Nothing else really matters. Okay. This is a really horrible slide. I'm sorry. I can't think of a better way to show it. The important thing is that this is the top 30 publishers in the UK. Running from Penguin Random House down to Titan Books at 30. With Nosy Crow, interestingly, after how many years? 8 years of publishing, we are now the 28th biggest publisher in the UK. Which I think is amazing, frankly. And this is based on figures, sales out to consumers. What's important to see here is that if it's green, it means sales have grown year to date from 2017 to 2018. This is information that came through today. I was working upstairs in a cafe, putting this slide on this piece of, putting together this slide to show you today, because it's now, I got this morning. It's just been published this morning. You can see, though, that the success and failure is quite evenly distributed across the big publishers and the little publishers. One thing that is really interesting to me is that the top 5, though, control nearly half of the market. Okay, so the top 5 publishers, that's Penguin Random House, Hachette, HarperCollins, Pan Macmillan, and Bloomsbury. They control half of the market, roughly. It is, though, also interesting to see that 5 years ago, and I don't have exact figures, but I know this and I checked it with Nielsen, 5 years ago they had over half of the market, and now they have just under half of the market. And this is a space in which tiny shifts are very important financially. Penguin Random House has 1/5 of the market. €1 in every €5 spent on a book in the UK by a consumer is spent on a Penguin Random House book. But they are dropping, and they have dropped significantly since the two companies amalgamated. So there was Random House and Penguin, and now there's Penguin Random House. Scale, if we ever needed a lesson, scale, being big, is not necessarily being best. It is not necessarily a marker of success. And meanwhile, Nosy Crow comes from nowhere to be 28th biggest publisher. We're taking market share from some of those big boys. Okay. So that's all I have to say about that. Yeah.
Grazie Kate, ha parlato tanto, ma ha dato anche dei valori incoraggianti, no? Anche se quel 2/3 della narrativa distribuita via Amazon credo sia un problema, questo è uno dei temi che dovremmo trovare. Amazon è una vetrina, appunto uno scaffale infinito per la presenza dei piccoli editori, questo ovviamente fa molto piacere a noi piccoli editori, ma è anche un rischio perché è talmente più grande di qualunque piccolo editore che tutti temono il momento in cui chiederà delle condizioni inaccettabili. Quindi non so questo come lo so, insomma, ma sarà bene discutere un po' su come affrontare anche questa concentrazione del mercato su Amazon. Molto interessante la rivincita, la riscossa delle piccole librerie indipendenti gestite con spirito battagliero e moderno, che appunto si è stabilizzato il mercato. Questo si sta vedendo anche negli Stati Uniti e un pochino anche in Italia, stanno anche rinascendo delle librerie di quartiere in Italia, con una loro selezione particolare, un loro servizio più diretto al cliente che non fa concorrenza ad Amazon sul prezzo. Questo è un tema interessante. Direi di sentire l'esperienza francese, allora, di un settore leggermente diverso, sempre legato ai ragazzi, ma più grandi, e agli adulti, nel fumetto e graphic novel. Sara Lapalu.
Thank you. I have to say that I didn't have the time to prepare some slides to introduce how our market is divided, but I think it's we have the same issues here. We have like big concentrated publishers or groups and small ones. And independent or alternative. So I can say that to introduce my point, that we have particular things that is the long law, that is a fixed book price agreement, which maintain a very strong network and dynamic of network of bookstores in France that guarantee high quality of creation and diversity, and lets a lot of publishing houses existing in France. I know that since the last 10 years, for example, the number of publishing houses double in France, and it's easier today to find these small publications in bookshops for everybody. But I have to say that the majority of the publications are sold less than 1,000 copies in France, and their half of this majority is sold less than 100 copies. So it's like few. We are so my where I work is an association, has been founded in 1990s, and they went to bookshops and present their books, and they were self-distributed and diffused, and they asked the bookstores to buy the books directly, so no return possible. So firm sales. It was the occasion for them to create also a strong network of bookstores that follow their work and follow they I don't, how can I say, they alternative creation and offer of comics. I'm not sure if everything is okay. And they sorry, it's my first time. And thank you. So in the 90s, there were a lot of publishing houses that wanted an alternative to comics books that to fight against standards, Tintin or Asterix, as you might know, and they decide to from a zines culture, they decided to make books in another way, and that's how alternative was born. I mean, it was created in comics, more or less. But they wanted to be recognized and professional, so they decided to work together to create how can I say an organism for self-diffusion and distribution, and to be recognized by booksellers and supported by them. And it's a very important thing because it's how small and very different publishers decided to collaborate all together to exist in not only in specialized bookstores but also in generalist bookstores. But I have to say that Amazon is our first client still. So, but I don't have, yeah.
Not only yours.
Sorry.
Not only yours.
Yeah, but no, I mean for I'm sure for everybody.
Not for me.
So proud of.
But they have done something quite recently. They asked our diffuser distributor if we wanted free returns or firm sales. So we all say firm sales, of course. But I can't understand now really the interest of this question to
They'll ask you for more discount.
No, they didn't actually.
But will they? Because once they've got, sorry, it's not my job. I think once they've got you, once you're there, once you're kind of dependent, then they come back and they hit you with discount.
No, because we are already working with them with free regions, and now they just ask if we wanted to continue like that or to turn in firm sales. And they didn't ask for. I thought as well it was for more discount, but they didn't ask that. So yeah, maybe.
That's next year.
Yeah, exactly.
There is no reason why not to do. That's the point. They have no reason why not to do.
Yeah.
That's the simple point.
Okay.
Let's see.
Now or later.
Yeah, they play a long game, Amazon.
Of course. Yeah, I don't know what to add. I'm not sure if everything is clear for everybody. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And Jordi. Jordi Nadal ha lavorato in tante case editrici, grandi gruppi, prima di fondare la sua casa editrice, che appunto è molto cresciuta in questi 10 anni. Può raccontarci quindi la sua esperienza e il suo punto di vista. Poi discutiamo nel dettaglio dei diversi canali e delle diverse tipologie. Non vorrei che ci concentrassimo solo su Amazon dall'inizio, perché è talmente facile, no, cadere nella trappola di Amazon come tema di discussione.
Va bene. Grazie per l'invitazione, mi scuso, non parlo bene l'italiano, allora non l'ho imparato mai, parlerò inglese, mi dispiace ma parlo molto meglio l'inglese, penso. Penso. She's going to say. Well, here's the thing. First, thanks for the invitation, and I want to present you a little bit about the Spanish market and about what we do in Spain to survive, creating a company year 2007, which is like renting a vacation place just before a tsunami. So it's like I rented a room in a hotel, in a resort, just before the tsunami. Because when the crisis struck Spain in 2008, the market lost 30% of the share, the book market, 30% of the share in 10 years. That's precisely where I started. So I bought a holiday place in a resort where it's going to start a tsunami. And in the year 2007, there were created in Spain 34 publishing houses. And my company, those are official dates in Spain, is the biggest one in turnover, 10 years later. 8 of them already closed. 8 of them already closed, but we are there. Let's see what's happening in the market. One of the giant sales leading companies ask their employees to use their time in thirds. 1/3 is analyzing data, 1/3 is improving process and our products, and 1/3 is solving problems. So when we are to take decisions in a publishing company or in any company, we have to analyze data to put solutions at place. It's like Jim Barksdale said, if you are coming to a meeting with opinions, I don't want opinions, I want data. Opinions, I already have mine. So come to the meeting with data to take decisions with facts, out of the facts. So some facts about Spain. In Spain there are 682 companies, publishing companies, which make a lousy 2.1% benefit before taxes on average. And half of these companies make less than 200,000 euros sales. So there are over 300 companies who make less than 200,000 euros yearly sales. That's the reason because I'm so impressed and so thankful to see here, to watch here, so many small companies, which mean, among many other things, a lot of energy. And publishing is contributing society knowledge by large. The great thing about publishing is that we are companies, private companies, who do things and spread knowledge. So we are like a resort of hope. The more our good books read, the more hope there is. In Germany, a country which has lost in last years 6 million readers, recently Börsenverein spread the information that they dropped from 36 million readers to 30 million readers. If you see the country map of Germany, in those places where there are less bookshops, there are more voters for Alternative für Deutschland, the neo-Nazi supporters. You hear that clear? The less bookshops there is in a country, the more people are voting for very worrying parties. Okay? So again, this is the first slide about the size of the market. If we would be analyzing in Spain distribution companies, There are 140 distribution companies, which is ridiculous. They make 0.8% average result on sales, which is quite lousy, which is, by the way, the same number, the same figure that bookshops. So if you have a daughter like me and you want them to be rich, then put her a bookshop unless she's the best one. Don't put her on retail or in distribution. And if you are a publisher, you have to be so good like her to make real money. Because it's an industry where you have to be really good. If you would be working in the pharma industry, you make a giant salary. Not in the publishing world. So we need the best people, the best possible people, to have energy and talent to make society go forward. I have hope if there is so many energy like in this book fair. Congratulations, Piero, and all you folks, Italian folks, you do great here. Because as Juvenal said in Latin, fortuna audaces juvat. And you need to be courageous. To be lucky, to be going forwards, you need to be courageous and engaged. The next slide would show my market, the Spanish-speaking, which has been losing 30% of their sales, 30% in this year, okay? And the next slide would be showing, please, sorry about this, I would like to do it, the size of the companies, okay? But I don't want to bore you with the slides. I understand that the Associazione will put these slides available. And the next slide would show, please, my dear colleague, thank you, the channels, where obviously Amazon is the big one, and then you have 3 bookshop chains, Casa del Libro, which belongs to Planeta, but they are growing, but they grow to pay attention on the books by the owner, so they pay more attention on the Planeta book grows. In Spain, there are 2 biggies. In Spain, it's like in calcio, in soccer. There is Real Madrid and Barcelona. Then you have Planeta and Random House. And I try to be like Atletico de Madrid, who is always there, annoying them. You have to be annoying them. It's like when 30 years ago, the Volkswagen Golf appeared, the GTI, the Volkswagen Golf, the myth GTI, the first advertising was in the mirror, a man driving or a woman in a fancy Jaguar, you guess, but there was a GTI blinking, asking for to overlap, and you were supposed to be thinking, the man or woman driving, saying, good damn car, because the Volkswagen Golf wanted to overtake. So you want to open a publishing house? You need guts, you need hope, you need energy, you need commitment, you need a great team, you need talent, you need luck, but be courageous, it's worth. The last one would be, the last slide would be, showing a little bit the market in Spain, and you have Mexico, Argentina, and Colombia, and Chile. But don't come me with a joke and the bullshit. You are 400 million people talking Spanish. You have to pay me a big advancement, because in Latin America you have to have a giant amount of money to finance putting books in print and send them in Latin America. And it has to do with being religious, because you have to be have a strong hope, because you hope you are going to be paid. You need to be very courageous, because you are hoping you are going to be paid. It's so easy to sell. The difficult thing is to get paid punctually, okay? So, this is the end of the slides. The second question is, how is the distribution in Spain? The distribution in Spain is lousy, way too many distribution companies, giant returns, and the 2 biggies after Casa Libro, which belongs to Planeta again, is Corte Inglés and FNAC. FNAC is in withdrawal. FNAC is now selling electronics, mostly, okay? So when they start to talk about non-books, it's like a nightmare. So, and El Corte Inglés, which is a giant department store, is going backwards, and the giant one, Amazon, is now having like 20 to 30% of the market. It depends on which sort of company do you have. So the question again is, the last question is of Christina. I'm very obedient. She was asking me, you tell what independents say, and I'm running her wishes accordingly to the schedule. What we do, what happens in Spain? In Spain, in these last 10 years, have been created 10 good companies which make from between €500,000 to €2 million. Well, mine is 2.5 million almost, so let's say 11 companies, because she's the 28th, I'm the 11th company, okay? I'm the Atletico de Madrid, I am on the mirror of the Jaguar driving, okay? They see me trying to overtake. What are these 10 companies doing? And I'll tell you what we are doing. But with what these 10 good companies are doing, they are very much similar, like the best publishers from the past. They read books, they publish few books, they work very well, passionate, and discover talent. Because there is one terrifying thing of the internet world. There are many good positive aspects, but the terrifying thing is, when there is a tsunami, you remember I bought a resort just before the tsunami. Remember the movie Lo Imposible? The Impossible with the tsunami? What happens after a tsunami? There is an overflow. You are overflowed with water. But it's not drinking water. What do you need? This. Pure water. So we publishers bottle pure water. In this internet world where everybody can publish himself or herself, that's a nightmare. That's a nightmare. So we filter what's worth. Our job or role in society is growing. But we have to explain, folks. We have to explain. We have to put in value our work. And we have to put, by the way, in my opinion, a higher price to books. Because if you put cheap prices to books, you are pointing out at the cheap value of the books. And you have the price is the expression of the value of a product. And finally, to sum it up, what we do different in Plataforma, we do 4 things which are a little bit unusual, I guess. First, we plant a tree for every title that we published. Second, we donate 0.7% of our net sales to NGOs, not from benefit from net sales. Third, we are godfathers of a school, godfathers and godmothers of a public school. We donate books because I don't know if you know, but according to the PISA survey, families, households who have less than 20 books, there's more probably to have children failing at the school. And if there are more than 200 books, children will succeed, because having a shelf with 200 books equals 3 years more of a studying in school. So we have to say this. We in the publishing world, we have to say that we are definitely contributing not to the best of the world, but to a great thing to improve society. What we also do in Plataforma is not only selling through Latin America, through Amazon and through retail, but I do tons of projects with great results. B2B, I sell a lot B2B, and hear that, B2B2C. And if you think my tongue is not talking properly, B2B is I sell to companies, B2B2C is I sell to companies who sell my content to their clients, customers, or employees. To sum it up, we have to enjoy and sing and squeeze our contents. And above all, have fun, win money, and make always clear and valid fortuna audaces tua. Thank you.
Grazie Jordi per la presentazione appassionata e colorita. Diego, il mercato italiano è anche un po' il filo conduttore di questo incontro. Il problema, mi pare che sia anche comune da quello che è venuto fuori, è che i piccoli editori sono in Italia, e forse non solo in Italia, gli editori che complessivamente sono più innovativi e crescono rispetto al mercato più o crescono solamente loro rispetto ai grandi editori, però poi le dimensioni del grande editore e anche le sinergie di gruppo del grande editore, le concentrazioni verticali del grande editore che controlla anche la distribuzione e le catene, questo dà non una marcia ma un motore in più al grande editore e si crea una situazione anticoncorrenziale in cui chi è più innovativo trova più difficoltà nel far arrivare al lettore, al consumatore, al cliente finale i propri prodotti. Questo inibisce, questo soffoca un po' la concorrenza. Credo che dovremmo essere tutti impegnati, anche i grandi editori, a trovare dei modi per liberare questa concorrenza che poi aiuta la ricchezza del mercato, la circolazione delle idee e in definitiva la ricchezza di un paese.
Sì, grazie. Buonasera. In realtà quello che dicevi, Carlo, è il filo conduttore del profilo del programma professionale di questa manifestazione di quest'anno, e cioè con il gruppo dei piccoli editori supportati egregiamente dall'ufficio studi nostro dell'AIE, quindi da Gianni Peresson, che è lì in fondo alla sala, da Cristina Mussinelli, d'intesa con Piero Attanasio per l'apporto del rapporto internazionale, quindi il progetto Aldus. Abbiamo questo primo evento proprio per conoscerci meglio, tra virgolette, e cioè ascoltare come funziona il mercato negli altri paesi di lingua importante, ovviamente europea, e dunque confrontare quella che può essere la problematica del traube rispetto a noi italiani e vedere di comprendere al meglio come affrontare i temi. I prossimi incontri che ne terremo nell'ambito del programma professionale infatti riguardano i rapporti e quindi gli incontri B2B con i promotori editoriali. Ancora un'altra giornata sarà dedicata ai distributori e poi ai librai, siano essi di catena o indipendenti. Da quel che sento, e che poi tra l'altro diciamo inevitabile che sia così, i problemi sono identici ed uguali in tutti i paesi del mondo. Forse l'aspetto interessante della Spagna che è una lingua forse molto parlata come l'inglese, però i cui mercati sono separati, perché io più volte ho avuto esperienze dirette, ad esempio con editori spagnoli o latinoamericani, non sempre c'è uno scambio fisico-materiale, cosa che invece avviene più facilmente nel mercato di lingua inglese e quindi anche quello francese, perché forse hanno un retaggio di continuità ex coloniale che però li continua a mantenere, diciamo, più simili tra di loro, a differenza di quanto avviene in Sud America, ma di questo poi magari mi permetterò di chiedere, diciamo, un approfondimento. Il nostro mercato italiano, ecco, lo tsunami si diceva prima, noi avevamo un mercato complessivamente assommava quasi a 3 miliardi di euro fino al 2009, siamo scesi precipitosamente dopo lo tsunami a un valore intorno ai 2.700 milioni, quindi 2 miliardi e 7. Stiamo un po' recuperando, recuperano certamente con molta caparbietà, come si diceva prima, i piccoli che continuano a rappresentare una punta di diamante nella offerta di autori, quindi nella differenziazione. Non esistono più i mega seller come una volta. Ecco, io ricordo che quando ho cominciato, sono di terza generazione, quindi dall'età della piccola Clara, cominciavo a masticare dei libri e si parlava di tirature minime di 5.000 copie. Oggi se arriva a 500 di prima tiratura probabilmente è già un buon risultato. Noi abbiamo poi questa cannibalizzazione che comunque esagerata in Italia delle piccole librerie indipendenti che sono state acquisite da grossi gruppi. Il più grosso gruppo editoriale italiano oggi dispone e dunque gestisce anche nei magazzini e nell'offerta editoriale di oltre 565 punti vendita in tutta Italia, quindi questo appare molto chiaro che per un piccolo editore riuscire ad entrare in una catena così grande è problematico. Ed è una delle giornate delle nostre riflessioni proprio per questo, cioè affrontare il miglior modo o delle ipotesi di strategie innovative che ci possano consentire l'accesso a queste grandi catene. Le 3 catene in tutta Italia raggiungono oltre i 2.000 punti vendita, le librerie indipendenti con lo tsunami, soprattutto quelle di tradizione familiare, seppur anche numerose nei punti vendita, sono praticamente state spazzate via dal nord al sud Italia, quindi senza possibilità di recupero, e questo è un dolore perché indipendentemente da quello che potesse essere il dispiacere di perdere dei punti di riferimento, è stato ed è ancora oggi motivo di mancanza di libertà di circolazione delle idee. Quindi torniamo al solito tema, che noi poi forse noi editori abbiamo un po' questa boria diciamo innata, che riteniamo sempre di poter offrire un prodotto o un contenuto che sia diverso da chi vende cravatte o chi costruisce scarpe, però ci guadagniamo ben di meno e l'investimento aziendale è notevolmente superiore. Quindi a questa domanda ci facciamo spesso il punto esclamativo sul volto, dice: ma chi me lo fa fare? Ecco, per renderla diciamo in maniera meno pesante questo motivo. Forse però per il piacere di riuscire a scoprire nuovi editori, nuovi autori, scoprire nuovi mercati, immaginarsi di costruire anche un discorso con il lettore, quindi delle collane editoriali che possano esprimere un qualcosa, un contenuto, e dire come la pensa l'editore e quindi perché investe in questo settore, in questo ambito. Non so quanto posso continuare a parlare del mercato italiano, diciamo mi fermerei qui in questa prima fase e poi vediamo un po' come ascoltare i nostri ospiti.
Io direi, se ci sono domande, facciamo le domande. Io comunque una per uno lo farei velocemente, quindi vogliamo prima sentire le vostre domande.
Io speravo di sentire oggi le proposte di soluzione, sapendo che era molto improbabile, però sarà, occupandoci di queste cose, forse rimane quella speranza, no? Che adesso in Europa ci fossero dei tentativi di strategie, di approccio, anche per, ad esempio, trattare con i grandissimi, trattare anche con Amazon, cioè fare cartello, per dirla volgarmente, no? E di fronte a una inglese comprende l'italiano e annuisce, mi dispiace che ora vadano via dall'Europa, non so in quale continente andranno, ma uno ci spera. Quindi questa è la prima domanda, cioè è finito qui? Ecco, però vorrei dire anche un'altra cosa. A mio avviso una delle soluzioni, uno degli elementi imprescindibili rimane quello che sta sparendo, cioè la piccola libreria e particolarmente la piccola libreria specializzata. Io non vedo alcuna seria alternativa, soprattutto in Italia. In Gran Bretagna, per quel po' che la conosco, magari può essere più anche la biblioteca per presentare i libri, però non so, dopo che hanno visto il libro e l'hanno letto già in biblioteca, se se lo vadano a comprare. Qui ce ne sono, vanno su Amazon. Allora, la piccola libreria come? Io scherzando vado dicendo, ma scherzando neanche troppo, secondo me il libraio che offre la possibilità di vedere, di toccare il libro, un prodotto che io non comprerei mai, se non perché è prescritto al dottore, al professore di scuola o altro, senza averlo avuto in mano, senza averlo sfogliato, ma evidentemente altri sono diverso parere. Quel libraio forse dovrebbe essere pagato come il promotore del farmaco, almeno in Italia. Cioè, c'è una vendita in questo territorio, nella tua città, nel tuo quartiere. In quel quartiere i librai che hanno i libri e li mostrano e li spiegano e li sanno spiegare, come non succede più nelle grandi librerie di catena, che ho visto cambiare moltissimo nella mia non breve vita. Quei librai dovrebbero prendersi 1 euro, 2 euro, 3 euro o in pounds solo perché in quella zona è stato ordinato un libro.
Libraio condotto, libraio di famiglia. No, potrebbe essere un'idea. Io ho preannunciato che avrei fatto una domanda, era proprio questa, cioè abbiamo analizzato i problemi, siamo tutti molto curiosi di capire quali soluzioni avete trovato individualmente nei vostri paesi e di condividerle per magari copiarci positivamente l'un l'altro. I problemi sono doppi e noi siamo continuamente un po' in bilico tra i problemi dell'editore e il problema del libraio. Mi concentrerei sui problemi dell'editore, perché il libraio, diciamo, è un'altra categoria, un altro mestiere. Io non voglio passare il tempo a suggerire al libraio quello che dovrebbe fare, sarei contento se ci suggerissimo quello che noi editori possiamo fare. Però certamente quello della libreria è un problema enorme che certamente tocca gli editori, insomma, e quindi, come sappiamo, va anche affrontato. Però quali sono le soluzioni al problema principale del piccolo editore, cioè di quando ha dei libri che valgono, come abbiamo visto le statistiche dimostrano, come possa portarlo a una diffusione crescente, maggiore, sufficiente per sostenere gli investimenti sui prossimi libri, sui prossimi autori, su royalties, diciamo, non disperate per gli autori che hanno diritto di vivere con le vendite delle proprie opere, no? Ecco, bisogna raggiungere delle dimensioni e il piccolo editore ora ha più difficoltà di un tempo forse a raggiungere queste dimensioni di vendita e di diffusione. C'è la promozione in mezzo, i promotori sono le persone che portano, no, come sappiamo, i libri al libraio, a conoscere il libraio, e c'è la distribuzione. C'è il problema della legge sul libro, lo sconto aiuta o deprime la vendita dei libri. L'esperienza inglese è opposta a quella francese, per esempio. L'Italia sta discutendo, è un po' una via di mezzo. Rapidamente, appunto, le cose che funzionano di più nei vostri paesi, o le idee più nuove, più innovative per dare forza ai piccoli editori.
I did some extra slides just because I can. So there are some more slides that I did that were sort of, I think, address some of these questions in terms of what Nosy Crow does. And I know we have, and one of them is about international selling. I thought we'd have like 40 minutes to do this, so it was, I put very much there, but you can see what I did put.
Back to the paper.
Back to the paper.
Piece of paper for...
We should have gone back to the paper. Sarah is our guide here, she's got the paper. So, how are you finding it so far? Useful? Interesting? Okay. Yeah, I thought this was quite interesting. I talked a lot about Waterstones. I could have talked a lot about Amazon, but I talked a lot about Waterstones. I think this week, or last week, where was it? Where am I? I'm in Italy today. Okay, so last week I was in America, and last week Waterstones, this big chain, announced its book of the year. The winner was an adult book, a novel for adults by Sally Rooney. Very good novel, and it's published by Faber. This is which is an independent publisher. In fact, a publisher that will probably, and this is amazing to me, will probably actually turn over less than Nosy Crow this year. I think they will turn over maybe about the same as Nosy Crow. And my first job was at Faber, so I like Faber. So Normal People won. Now I'm guessing that they worked really hard with Waterstones, with their chain, and I know that's not always open to you because I know you've got the challenge of publishers owning book chains here. We don't have that, but they will work really hard with Waterstones. There was a Nosy Crow book that was also on the shortlist, so they're promoting the shortlist and now they're promoting the winner. They gave to this book, I Am the Seed That Grew the Tree, which is so heavy I can hardly hold it up, which is a Nosy Crow book. This accolade, Children's Gift of the Year, so they awarded 2 prizes this year. And again, this is the book that I showed them the cover 5 times. I showed them the cover 5 times. I asked them what price it should be. This was a hugely ambitious piece of publishing. To touch on Jordi's point, this is a full colour book, you can look at it, but it's a full colour book with a poem for every day of the year. It cost us an insane amount of money to print.
It cost us an insane amount of money to clear the permissions, and it cost us an insane amount of money to illustrate. In every way, it was a thing that I think only a small publisher could do. Because at no point did I have to persuade an accountant in my company that this was a thing worth doing. At no point. Do people here know the film, The Field of Dreams, where there is the line, if you build it, they will come. And this is a really good example of being able to do something that Penguin Random House cannot do. My competitors in Hachette and at Bloomsbury, 2 of the top 5 publishers, people that I know who are running those children's division, and indeed Emma Hopkins, who runs the whole of Bloomsbury, sent me congratulations, not when it's won, but when it was published, and said, how did you do that? You want to say, because we're an independent publisher, and we just did it, because we can. So that speaks to Jordi's point about bravery and ambition among small publishers. We talk a lot about innovation, and this is an innovation in terms of format, I think. But I think it is important for us all to recognise that every single book we publish is an innovation. Every book is a new product. We're not like the people who produce chocolate bars or bottles of water where they're all the same. We have to work out how to market them differently. They're all the same. Every time we bring out a new title, we are innovating. Everyone in this room, probably, assuming you're mainly publishers, is an innovator. And I think that as small publishers and medium-sized publishers, we have opportunities to innovate that bigger companies just don't have. We don't have management structures that are suppressing creativity. We don't have banks of accountants whose job is to do, I'm sorry, Jordi, the analysis of the numbers. If I had costed that book using one of the forms that I used to have to use in my previous corporate life, for I am a corporate refugee, having been fired by a corporation. Actually, that's why I'm here today. If I had had to fill in one of those forms, that book would never have existed. We have so far sold 75,000 copies of that book across the English language markets. And actually that's an unusual book because it's not one that we can sell internationally. So 75,000 copies. That was a risk worth taking. Okay, here is our other thing. I talked about the fact that I am the seed that grew the tree, which is poetry, and therefore very hard to translate for all the permissions reasons and all the literally translation reasons. That's a very English language book for us. But for us, it is not just about the UK. Our approach to the market is international. And I think that's very interesting because for relatively low cost, you can go to a Frankfurt book fair or a Bologna book fair or the London book fair. You can have a small stand there. I'm always really interested to come to a country and visit publishers because you get suddenly a sense of the difference of scale. We are all alike in a book fair. Okay, so Penguin Random House has a bigger stand than I have, but I am as visible at that book fair, really, as Penguin Random House is. International business has been hugely important to us. This map shows the number of new books and pamphlets, 1 million, that was published across the world a long time ago, in 1999. This is an old slide. It predates the internet. It's not massively helpful, but what I think is interesting is that this map is distorted by the number of books per head of the population. The UK is a tiny market relative to the number of books we produce. Yes, we have a huge advantage. That is our huge advantage. Our huge advantage is that 1.5 billion people in the world speak English, even though there are fewer native speakers of English than there are of Chinese or of Spanish. But I can stand here and speak to lots of you in English, and lots of you are not listening with headphones. Now, on the one hand, yay me, because English. On the other hand, I invest heavily in language. So when I've got 45 people working for me, they would speak 8 languages. We can offer 8, we have native speakers of 8 languages. So when we sell to Gallucci, it's an Italian woman who sells to Gallucci. We invest in that. We think about that. I am seeing increasingly that other publishers from other places are creating English rights guides, translating small bits of their books into English. Because if you have it in English, you can sell it to Sweden, you can sell it to France, you can sell it to Spain. Well, actually, Spain's a bit tricky. You have to really have a Spanish speaker. But anyway, in principle, you can sell it to Germany. You can sell it to America. You're never going to sell it to the UK because we just don't buy very much. But anyway, you can sell it to lots of other people. So thinking, how can you make the world your market? The world is my market. It's fine. If bad stuff happens to the bookshops in the UK, it's not great. I'm not happy, but the world is my market. This year, I went to China twice. I went to the Beijing Book Fair and I went to the Shanghai Book Fair. China is our third biggest market. I did a deal in Shanghai for a series of board books and I sold them 800,000 copies. 800,000 copies. Think about the world, people. It's not all about Italy. Italy's lovely. But it's not all about Italy. So that's an important point. I just had some other quick things. The first two of these thoughts for small and medium-sized publishers for problem solving are how we make ourselves bigger. How do you make yourself bigger? The two things I put there are ways of making yourself bigger. One is collaborative working. Faber set up the Faber Alliance, and they have, under the management of Faber, a huge range of really good publishers. Profile's a good example, Canongate's a good example, that they are selling into bookshops under their, if you like, umbrella. They are strengthened one by the other. They get space, time, attention from booksellers because they are collectively bigger than they are individually. Similarly, I use a sales agency that's a children's sales agency. And there are bookshops I wouldn't be able financially to reach, cost too much to talk to them, really. And I wouldn't maybe get the time in front of them, but I do because I'm going in with a bunch of other people. This matters less to me now that we've grown, but at the beginning, it was the only way through. So are there ways of working collaboratively? Are there things you could do together that might make you bigger than you are individually? Have more power than you are individually. Because we are dealing, in the case of Amazon, with a power that is unimaginably huge for most of us. So you have to think about are there things you can do where you can club together, where you can work together. This whole fair is a brilliant example of collaborative working among small and medium-sized publishers. Another thing that Nosy Crow has done, and that you have to be a particular kind of publisher to do, is partnership publishing. So we publish with two organisations. We publish with the British Museum, and we publish with a thing called the National Trust. And National Trust is a charity that looks after big houses in the UK, and also quite a lot of our landscape. So quite a lot of beaches, and mountains, and woods, and those kinds of things. We decided that we could offer them children's expertise in exchange, really, for the kind of imprimatur, the brand awareness that both of those have. And so we work together with them. It gives us retail presence. People say, oh, it's a British Museum book, I must have this in my shop. Even if they don't know who Nosy Crow is. So that's been a really interesting question. Who are your potential partners? I think as small and medium-sized publishers, we are well placed to work with these big organisations. If you are a really huge organisation and you come into conflict with you have your processes, you have your methodology, and you come into conflict with another big organisation, British Museum, oh my God, here it comes. They're huge, and they're very fixed in how they work. And I don't think it is easy for big publishers to work their way around, to be flexible enough to work their way around these huge, often very uncommercial organisations. You have to be flexible. So I think partnership publishing has been important for us. I then said, so those were two things: to make yourself bigger, if you like, to use other people to collect your power and make yourself bigger. The other two things are about you being small. One of the reasons I was fired was because I put out a blog post, internally actually, that was about what we can call, I was working in adult publishing, what can we call women's genitals in mass market women's fiction? Which I thought was a really interesting question. As I think you will all know, there must be Italian slang words for women's genitals that some women go kind of, ugh, and men might go, and there are other words that we kind of are like okay about. I thought that was an okay question. Turned out not an okay question. So I was fired 5 days later, but I thought it was interesting. So I wasn't very good, it turned out, at ventriloquizing a corporate voice. As an independent publisher, I am really good at this. I am really, really good at this. I know who my customer is, and I know how to talk to them. And I'm not talking to them about women's genitals because I'm a children's book publisher, obviously, and so it's not much of a factor. So I'm talking to them as a parent. We created a kind of aura that we were mothers, because most of us were, publishing books for other mothers for their children. This means, for example, that I don't do young adult books, because my voice doesn't extend to teenagers, doesn't extend to young people who want to read teenage books. It is to moms. I am talking to parents all the time. I may be talking to teachers and I'm talking to, but I've got a very clear sense of who my audience is. And HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, can't do that because they have a huge audience. They're enormous. My focus means that I can have a distinctive social media voice. And we would have tens of thousands of followers on Twitter. I think I'm maybe at 28,000, 29,000. We're kind of 15,000 on Instagram from nothing. We started an Instagram account at the beginning of this year, more or less, and we've built that. We've had millions of views on YouTube. It would be an unusual day that we would not see on Twitter one mother recommending Nosy Crow, not an individual book, but a Nosy Crow book to another mother. It would be an unusual day. We work this so hard. We are tweeting all the time. We're Instagramming all the time. We blog every single weekday. We write a blog. Without fail, we write a blog. And sometimes it's quite boring, and sometimes it's interesting, but we are absolutely tireless in saying that that's the thing that we will do. Social media is your friend as a small independent company because you probably have greater focus than your large-scale competitors. You can get to know your customers, and you will appear to be approachable. And you won't have some person saying, that's not a thing you can say, fire that woman. You just make your own decisions about what you think your customers are going to be interested in. Which really leads to saying, understand your difference. And I've already talked about women's genitals, I'm now going to swear. She's fine. I will say, people will sometimes in the company, I've got 45 people working for me now, and they will say, shall we do this? And I will say, we cannot be a shit HarperCollins. Let's not be a shit HarperCollins. That's never going to work for us. We have to say, we are small, we are independent. That's a thing they do. And yes, they put adverts in the tube. Good for them. And yes, it costs them hundreds of thousands of euros. Fine. That's not how we do it. We cannot be bad at mimicking a big company. We have to understand what we do, what our focus is, what our brand means, what the limits are for us, and leave some things to other people. Because yes, you do want to be the VW, of course you want to be the VW, but you need to be in a different car. You're in a different car, you need to know what that car can do. and to understand what the capabilities of your car are and build the capabilities of your car. Know your difference, know your brand, make it an advantage. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Now only few minutes each for your suggestion, please.
I completely. I wanted to talk about, like, you talk about this book, and I think it's the same thing happens to us when we published Persepolis. So we were unknown and non-recognized, and then we had this huge success, and it helps all the alternative independent publishers in comics and graphic novels. And I agree with you. No other big group could have done this book, this kind of thing. I just want to introduce 3 things that we are working on since I arrived in my association. The first one is, so we are the alternative. We are a small part of the field of comics. We have like a symbolic capital since this success, but we still don't really exist. Even if, for example, in Angoulême you have more and more books published by alternative publishers that are in the selection or won the prizes. We decided with 8 other publishers that are doing the same, who has the same projects with authors, with books, who have the same kind of idea of how a book should it make, I don't know.
Like values. The same values.
Yeah. And the same relation to experimental things. We decided to organize a public presentation for our publications it was in June, and it was for the second semester, in front of journalists and booksellers, and we are going to organize the next one in January, inviting also librarians. So we were 8. We were like very from very small to like small. We were the biggest. We are 15. We published 15 books a year, and we are 4 in the company. And it was we invited around 90 persons, and they came. We had very positive feedbacks on this experience. We've done it in Paris, but maybe we would need to increase the audience and maybe to go to like bigger city. I don't know. It's not the plan yet, but we are thinking about it. And actually, what we had like as a feedback was that the journalists had an overview of what we were going to publish, and so when we wrote them like a few months later to say, hey, you know, this book, they knew already what we were talking about, and also the booksellers, and they were really happy to have this overview of like publishers that have the same kind of ambitions and relation to the book and to the authors. The second thing we are working on this day is over diffusion. We are working with an independent person who is not representing the whole company, who is not a commercial, she's working on projects, specific project from different companies and different size of companies. So she works with a big publisher who let her. I mean, the book. How can I say? So the big publisher is for her a getaway to enter with someone who, some project which is trusted by the booksellers, and then she can come with us and our project that are maybe not so known. So it's really useful to draw attention to some projects, some publishers that can be like unknown or lost in a diffuser distributor like panel, and it helps to create a new movement in the production. And so she's creating a link with I don't know, she started this year, and she visited like more than 5,000 bookshops all over France, and she has more freedom because she has no commercial interest, nor we don't ask for results, and it opens also new points of sales, because we are working with a project linked to music in a way, we say, and she's going to record stores, something like that. And the last thing is that we are part of a union, Alternative Publisher Union, which is the alternative union to the National Union of Publishers. We are 45 publishers in that union, and we are going for the first time. We are working together since a couple of months on our international visibility. We are going to create a catalog with a selection of books of the 45 publishers, and we are going to have a collective booth at the Angoulême and Frankfurt book fairs. So it's and we are going to create also a website where you can have the books and the available rights and the translation. So we are creating now all these things that I'm just talking about things that we are doing together. As you said, like working together, but showing differences between our projects. But I think it's better because we are very small and we are very few, and we can't do everything because we have just like a few times. I don't know, a few. Yeah, that's all.
Okay, thank you, Sarah. Now, Jordi, 2 or 3 suggestions to sell more, to be alive in this shrinking market, please.
In some countries, publishers represent the authors as speakers. We do, okay? The Scandinavians do. In Holland, they start to do it. We do it. One idea, to represent your authors as speakers. Second, we work with some of the biggest companies in Spain, organizing for them awards on their behalf. So we work as a communication company. So I'm not understanding my role only as a publisher. I'm working in the communication of ideas. I'm working in the content industry, and I do sell a lot of content. You might have heard about Zurich Insurance Company, top 10 in the world. They have a foundation. They're doing a major 4-year program for young people in high schools in Madrid. 4-year program on contents, health, lifestyle, etc. and we do the content. Because there are two main themes in my catalog, two keywords, which are education and health in a very wide sense. The 21st century, there's going to be two keywords, education and health, and we're very strong on this. So we sell the knowledge of our authors in these two giant fields, and we do this project with the Zurich Foundation. We do this with one of the 3 biggest banks in Spain. We organize 2 awards for them. We organize another giant bank in Spain, BBVA, is doing a giant project on education, learning together with videos. And among the 41st authors, the 41st experts they've chosen, 1 out of 4, 25% are from my catalog. So when a giant bank, the 3rd biggest bank in Spain, the 2nd biggest bank, Spanish in the world, chooses 40 experts to talk on education with videos, the authors from our catalog. So we have to think about how do we sell what we sell and how we do transmit this content, be it in paper, be it electronic, be it in audio, be it in a seminar, be it as a knowledge, be it as a communications company. Here is the thing. Probably the shelf which is most sold in Europe is sold through IKEA, and it's called Billy. In a Billy shelf, you can put 200 books. If I told you priorly that according to the PISA survey, if you full a bookshelf with 200 books, kids in these families will have like 3 years more of a school. Why don't you, Piero, on behalf of Associazione Italiana di Editori, write IKEA in Stockholm? I did this in Spain already, okay? To convince them to rebaptize, to re-Christianize the PISA, the Billy shelf, not to PISA, PISA, now to PISA, put 200 books and create the urge, the need, the thought, the idea that in every family they could add 200 more books. So they'll make a giant leap, like a giant and positive one, not like the one from Mao, the giant leap, the leap forward. It's not the great leap, the giant leap, the leap forward with education. Put 200 books in a family. Put 200 books in a family. There's going to be a giant leap. Everybody talks about content, and the internet allows exchanging of content, but we are responsible for the quality of this content. Who are going to be the gatekeepers? Those who organize elections in the USA? So we have to be socially engaged and be very persuasive to have a better place in society as a publishers, because we are more than gatekeepers, we filter. And here is the last thought, which is rather scary. There is no point back in climate change. There is no point back with Amazon. But we have to reread Asterix and be like this small village in the northwest of the Gallia who resist the Roman Empire. Again and last, fortuna audaces juvat.
Noi siamo a Roma però, quindi
Sì, lo so. Sì, lo so.
ci piace tanto quel villaggio.
Resistiamo, sì, è meglio resistere dalla ragione.
Ultima parola a Diego Guida.
Giusto un passaggio, perché noi come AIE ne abbiamo regalati di libri, noi abbiamo un progetto e va tenuto in conto, va ricordato che io leggo perché, che quest'anno vede addirittura regalati dagli editori dell'AIE circa, quanti sono, 350.000 pezzi quest'anno nelle scuole, per cui abbiamo inventato un sistema, complessivamente in tutta Italia, abbiamo inventato un sistema di intesa con le scuole per le biblioteche scolastiche, quindi ognuno di noi diciamo così, che ha aderito a questo invito dell'associazione dell'AIE, ha messo a fattor comune in associazione, in un magazzino unico, questi volumi che vanno nelle scuole. In più c'è anche un'altra opportunità che abbiamo immaginato e che abbiamo inventato, che possiamo suggerire, diciamo, a voi colleghi di altri paesi, che è quella che nasce un po', io sono napoletano, quindi mi diverte a ricordarla come l'idea del caffè sospeso, cioè un libro comprato, un altro libro donato, per cui d'intesa con le librerie per valorizzare quelle piccole librerie di cui tutti noi sentiamo la mancanza e la necessità, soprattutto come momento di mercato e di conoscenza dei nostri cataloghi. Una qualsiasi acquirente comprando un libro ne lascia un altro che non sia per forza di cose lo stesso titolo, ma che ne lascia un altro, perché la scuola di quartiere possa poi andarlo a recuperare per la propria biblioteca, quindi per far crescere l'interesse della lettura per i giovani, per cementare il rapporto tra lettori, scuola, libreria, editori, e speriamo che possa essere quel seme perché si possano creare nuovi lettori. Però io vorrei chiudere, se mi consenti, giusto con una domanda, diciamo così, un intervento, perché hai sollevato un tema che trovo particolarmente caldo per noi qua in Italia: l'esperienza inglese del prezzo libero e l'esperienza francese del prezzo fisso. Noi che invece siamo a metà del quadro, Italia e Spagna, che cosa dobbiamo guardare? All'essere stati illuminati dalla legge Lange con il prezzo fisso, oppure a lasciare libero il mercato con tutti i rischi? E quali sono dunque i rischi? Cioè, sono effettivamente scomparse tante realtà di piccoli editori e di librerie a seguito di questo, diciamo, ipotesi di legge, di questa legge che ha bloccato tutto, oppure fare una sorta di barriera politica e quindi dare un prezzo imposto oltre il quale non si possa fare dello sconto è più lungimirante?
I would support, if you have a fixed price, keep your fixed price, dear God. Of course. It changes everything. It changes absolutely everything. It changes author royalties in a way you don't think about until it happens. So it makes it harder for creators, it makes it harder for authors, it makes it harder for illustrators, it makes it harder for small bookshops because they cannot compete on price. I now live in a market, you said we can't turn back climate change, we can't turn back Amazon. I can't imagine us, though I know France did, turning back on the fixed price question. I can't imagine that happening, but if I could turn back time and not have those men, it was men, people, who made that decision in the late 1990s, and it was, they saw it as being to the advantage of corporate publishers, they did, then I would turn back time and I would stop them doing it. I would keep a fixed price. I think they find the other really important thing, of course, is to say that it changes perception of the value of books in the heads of people. And I think books are woefully underpriced. I mean, appallingly underpriced. So hang on, people. Hang on to fixed price.
Is that the answer you wanted?
Beh, non so se ci sono domande, ma credo che il tempo sia terminato, il tempo a disposizione. Come conclusione io mi sento di dire che tutti gli interventi confermano che la grande forza dei piccoli editori e medi come Kate è la passione, la dedizione, la fantasia, l'energia che mettono nel loro lavoro. Cioè, da tutto quello che avete detto io ricavo questo, che la vostra più grande forza nei vostri mercati, nelle vostre attività è la vostra e la nostra passione. Dobbiamo cercare di rafforzare questo elemento che abbiamo con una struttura di mercato che ci garantisca la sopravvivenza, no? Anche in un mercato difficile. Forse non basta la sola passione. Grazie ai nostri ospiti e grazie a tutti voi.
Stefano.